Welcome back to another episode of Montclair News Lab. I'm Crystal Santos, and it's the week after Election Day. Here's what's coming up.
We hear from 3 young adults who have followed the election closely. The stresses of 2020. We'll investigate why Black Americans find mental health services hard to access. All this and more coming up on Montclair News Lab.
Joining us today, we have 3 friends of Montclair News Lab here. We have Stephen Rumbolo, first off, who's a political science student here at Montclair State University in the graduate program. Then we have Nyasia Brackett, who's a former field organizer on the Joe Biden campaign. And last but certainly not least, we have AJ Melillo, who is a undergrad student studying political science here also at Montclair State. Thanks for joining us today. So at the time of this recording, former Vice President Joe Biden is now considered President-elect Joe Biden. Much to the surprise of many individuals that we saw through the polls. What changed that made this race so close? AJ, do you want to start there?
Sure. First of all, I want to start with saying that the race isn't over yet. The media called it for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not yet the president-elect. We still have lawsuits and we have recounts to do. Look, if the lawsuits don't work, if the recounts still show Joe Biden wins, then Joe Biden wins, but the race isn't over yet.
Stephen, are you surprised that President Trump is bringing all of these legal battles to the table?
No. He has been, as a matter of rhetoric, laying the foundation to attempt to delegitimize Joe Biden's win. He said it from the beginning, mail-in ballots, nobody's asking for these. It's fraudulent. They're going to steal the election. So I'm not surprised. That being said, in a matter of being fair, a lot of, people who didn't win do this kind of thing. They bring up these lawsuits and sort of to double back and double check and make sure 100% that they are the loser is what it comes down to, because these lawsuits don't ever really prove to be anything productive other than at this point sowing division and allowing people to continue to say it's not over yet.
Thank you, Stephen. Nyasia, bring it to a different topic. We're seeing coronavirus cases rise tremendously in the Garden State and in the country and the world and beyond. Do you believe that President Donald Trump's response to COVID is one of the reasons that he was not elected in this election?
Well, that was one, yes. I don't believe that was solely the only one. It wasn't like that was the deal breaker for a lot of folks. There have been a lot of things before here that laid the groundwork. However, I'm sure that for over 200,000 Americans who have unfortunately lost someone, that could have been the deal breaker for a large majority of them.
AJ, it looks like you had something to say during that.
No, I wouldn't say that I necessarily disagree with what Nyasia said. I think that it does play a role. If the coronavirus didn't happen, there wouldn't be as many mail-in ballots. So maybe Joe Biden wouldn't have 73 million votes and Donald Trump wouldn't have 70 million votes, right? I think that the mail-in voting definitely helped Joe Biden a lot.
Stephen?
I think a lot of Americans would tend to agree that his response to COVID was laughable. You send out one stimulus package that was, again, to use the term, laughable for a lot of Americans who are unemployed and out of work, paying bills. And you have this opportunity now. Well, they did have this opportunity to, work in a bipartisan way. And Democrats are at fault for not doing it also.
Louis, if I may respond to that Nancy Pelosi also, I know you did mention Democrats, but you blamed it more on Mitch McConnell in your response.
It is his fault.
Well, Nancy Pelosi also didn't come to the table, is my real point. She wasn't going to do anything. She didn't pass the bill.
They did.
They passed the HEROES Act. They did. But unfortunately, I agree with Stephen that we played politics instead of caring about American lives.
Thank you, Nyasia. Thank you, Stephen. And thank you, AJ, for being here, sharing your voices, your thoughts of young voters here in the United States.
It's been a tough year. COVID, the economic fallout from it, and the fight for racial justice. Giovanna Boggins tells us about this one part of the population that has suffered more but gotten less help.
There's one community the problems of the year 2020 have hit harder than most. African Americans. They're facing 2 plagues, racial injustice and COVID. Jarrell Saunders Didymus is a recent MSU graduate who lives in Camden, New Jersey.
A lot of people in my hometown dealing with a virus every day before this virus even came out. They're living through poverty. They're living through worse things that's been happening to them for years.
As bad as living in poverty is, COVID hit the African American community hard.
On the African American community, and we're doing everything in our power to address this challenge. It's a tremendous challenge.
The COVID-19 mortality rate is 3 times higher for blacks than whites.
I've had 3 deaths in, I would say, March to July, August, and it's just been horrific for our family.
Genevieve Alzavar says COVID and racial injustice has left an emotional toll on the black community. They lack the mental health assistance they need. Genevieve says she's dealing with it the best she can.
As a black woman in America, we've learned to suppress our emotions, learn to live past it.
4.8 million African Americans have reported they are suffering from a mental illness. And Bria Willis, a director of social workers at a healthcare center, does not see a rise in people asking for help.
I think it's a lack of resources. I think financially, lack of insurance, and also you really don't see a lot of communities or facilities that offer counseling services in the black community. Like if you wanted to go seek counseling, you would probably have to travel pretty far.
Genevieve believes she needs help but cannot afford it.
I feel like that's money that I don't need to spend at this very moment because it's not my most important resource right now that I need.
It can be stressful to be an African American in America today. Black men are about 2.5 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than white men, and black women are 1.4 times more likely than white women.
Every day is the same to me. Like if I see a cop, like I'm slowing down super slow. Like if I'm walking, I'm going to look at the cop, make sure they're not looking at me. Worrying about what can happen in 2 seconds. I'll just always think about death.
Seeing it every single day. So the natural reaction to the body to protect itself emotionally is to numb yourself. So that's what most, especially black men, if you see a black man being gunned and killed in the street and you see gun violence and you see it every single day, it becomes the norm.
This election year, Jarrell thought Black Lives Matter would mean change.
In this election, black people are the center of attention and we still getting treated like nothing.
In 2018, 58.2 black young adults 18 through 25 and 50.1% of adults 26 through 49 with serious illness did not receive treatment.
When you have a community that's so suppressed, and that's used to being suppressed, and that's used to being an underdog, and that's used to being a minority, you don't necessarily feel like you have a safe place to express yourself emotionally.
In 2015, 86% of psychologists in the U.S. workforce were white, 5% were Asian and Hispanic, and 4% were black.
I don't think they could understand it unless they were the type of person that lived through my shoes or lived through my traumas or my obstacles.
I still want to seek counseling. I only want to see a therapist who can relate to me. That's why I've been holding back.
The starting point for change is teaching that it is okay to express positive and negative emotions.
Natural reaction is anger, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anger, disappointment, helplessness, depression, anxiety, feeling like you want to give up, suicide. I encourage people to get more involved in the issue instead of sitting back and just moping about it and being upset about it and allowing that emotion to overcome you.
I'm joined now by 2 psychologists from the Counseling and Psychological Services here at Montclair State University, Dr. Oy and Dr. Wadwani. African American culture, a lot of us are taught to not express how we feel, and a lot of them don't feel comfortable expressing how they feel to counselors unless they look like them. So how does being a counselor of color maybe help a student of color express themselves?
I really do think representation matters. It matters a lot. And I'll say for myself that I noticed that a lot of Asian male students just come to me and talk to me about things. And I wondered to what extent that might be because they might feel more comfortable for a variety of reasons.
I've often been in a situation where I'm kind of one of the only people of color wherever I work. So I kind of am the person that students of color of all backgrounds and races come to, but I'm very aware that I don't share the experience of all our students.
Is there a difference in how men and women deal emotionally with racial injustice?
Women of color have been conditioned to suppress their voices more, and a lot of the women in my Mosaic Women group kind of have been trained kind of by society and their families that sometimes the self doesn't matter as much, or their voice doesn't matter as much, or like if they express their feelings, then they're stereotyped.
Is there something that men can go to as well?
Good question. That we need a Mosaic Men group, Dr. Jude.
You know, that's something that we've been talking about at COPS, is developing a men's group. And the reality is we'll develop whatever the campus needs. If we get a certain critical number, then we're able to form those kinds of groups. But yeah, we're absolutely open to starting any group for which students feel a real desire for us to meet.
Ahmaud Arbery was killed in his community, in his neighborhood, and Breonna Taylor was killed in her home. This triggers for African Americans to not feel safe in anywhere they go, not in their communities, not in their homes, not in stores. How can we ensure that African Americans feel safe on campus?
Pains me so much that our African American students cannot feel safe on this campus. And I hope that knowing that there are supports and that there are allies and that we're having these conversations and these spaces to connect can give a sense of safety.
Thank you, Dr. Oy and Dr. Wadwani. Have a wonderful day.
Many sports have been canceled due to COVID-19. Others have trouble practicing. One coach decided to take matters into her own hands. Jack Bartek from the Red Hawk Sports Network shows us how one team's ingenuity allowed them to continue to play the game.
I'm Jack Bartek, and I'm here with head women's basketball coach Karen Harvey. And Coach, I want to let you tell us where we are.
Well, we are at the brand new outdoor basketball court.
So how did this idea come about, and whose idea was it?
Well, I think, it came about obviously because of COVID and not being able to have access inside. And, when we found out we were going to get to come back to campus, everyone was really excited, and the players were asking a bunch of questions. And then I said, well, you're not going to have access to Panzer, and the rec center is going to be closed. So this is one of these things that happens in my head at 3 a.m., and I said, we should build something. We should do this.
And so they did. They took this, a stretch of asphalt full of potholes just behind the football field, and got to work. From the head coach to the associate athletic director to the former All-American, now assistant coach, everyone got their hands dirty.
Get after it, Katie.
All right, here we go.
Squats.
Check out this form, Scotty.
She's learned so much in her time.
We're very proud. I think that part of it came out of a necessity and part of it came out of just having been able to control anything for the last 6 months. But this was something that I could control with the help of my athletic administration and something that we could do to provide our players a better experience.
Tell me, how difficult was it actually putting everything together and making it happen?
I knew nothing about this stuff. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I read a lot of reviews. I stressed over the brand of sealer to use for about 2 days. Katie, my assistant, Katie Sire, helped out. Our associate athletic director, Shannon Halley, had her down here. And the nice thing is it's not just women's basketball using it. Men's basketball is using it all the time. And it's kind of like the old movie, you build it, they will come kind of thing. So it feels pretty good. We did a lot of hard work. It wasn't easy. But I look at it every day now. I drive by it every day. I look at it, I see who's out here, and I smile, and I say, I see if the seal coat's holding up. I'm like, oh, it looks pretty good. And the final step is to put the lines down. So Taylor's got the spray paint. She is, we're a little nervous to put the lines down, I'm not going to lie. We know we got a great hoop. This is pretty much the best one you can get. So that'll last for 20 years. And it feels good. It feels good.
I am Jack Bartek for the Montclair News Lab, signing off.
That's all the time we have for today. Don't forget to tune in next week for an all-new episode. From Montclair News Lab, I'm Krista Santos. Have a great week.